Hiya, hiya. So, welcome to Ocean Yumi's channel. So today I decided to try and do um Jeffrey Dahmer's The Victims because everybody was really more looking at him than the victims. Just to try and find the page that I found with the victims because um I feel that a lot of money has been made on the heads of the victims, and it's not really right. So, me being a channel holder, I thought, and probably somebody else has already done a video on the victims themselves, but I feel that is even though they died so horrifically, their families went through so much traumas as well that I we'll do a video showing, obviously explaining, the demise, obviously, because you can't leave that bit out. And it's important that being right, it wasn't only it was he he literally went across the border. It was Asian and black people as well that he ate, as well as the ones the 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 hiker, um, you know, it's just very sad. Some names I may get wrong because I normally I check out the pronunciation of the names and stuff like that. Um, it's very sad. I mean, the way how it's portrayed on Netflix, because Netflix done two. They done. I wouldn't say a docu. I don't know what it is. Not a series. I don't know what it is. And the one where they did a documentary on on him explaining his childhood and all this, and trying to make him out like he's, oh, because whatever he went through is like saying it's down to the parents and all this. I mean, it's a lot of excuses. Personally, I think it's a lot of excuses. And the victims, I feel they should have consulted the families when they was making these moves, because what they're doing, they're opening up old wounds as well. And I feel it's pretty sad, to be honest. But personally, I'm gonna focus on the victims, his victims, um, his victims. I feel that the West, the West. Now I know I lived in the West. I know I live in the West myself. Focus on a lot of killers and stuff like that. We are very obsessed with killers and serial killers and all that, which, which is interesting because we try to understand their state of mind and all that stuff and what made them do it and all that. But it's the victims. The victims get shoved one side in most cases. Like what tends to happen, which I notice on most things, is that 1 minute, right, we're all hot, 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 hot on the subject, and another minute it goes back to normal. Like everybody just gets on with life. Let me move myself out the way. We get on with life, and the victims get forgotten. I mean, though these victims wasn't forgotten, and what's so interesting, that though there is a lot of YouTube information on him, breakdowns on him, and stuff like that. I'm trying to, I don't know. Netflix is like they're trying to put out a message, I reckon, but it could be just me. I could be reading into it too much. I don't know. I feel that the way he confessed to all the killings was very sickly, and it's like he striped on that sickness, and I don't know how else to put it in really, but right now I'm gonna try and show each individual one. So Jeffrey Dahmer had 17 male victims. Here's everything you should know about them. So over the course of 13 years, Jeffrey Dahmer had 17 victims who he murdered, dismembered without getting caught. Jeffrey Dahmer was a serial killer cannibal who targeted homosexual men, teens, and many of whom were people of color. Dahmer often found his target in public areas such as bars, bus stops, in the streets. He lured them back into his apartment by offering money in exchange for photos or sex. When the men got to Dahmer's house, he would drug and kill them, often dismembering their bodies, sometimes having sex with them, which is a form of necrophilia. So the New York Times reported Jeffrey Dahmer often kept trophies of his victims, placed their bones into 57-gallon drum. Here's everything you should know about the 17 innocent lives Dahmer took. Now, see, there is a white guy, obviously, as you can see. Now, this is Stephen Hicks. This was his first victim. So, 18-year-old Stephen Hicks was murdered in 1978 after Jeffrey Dahmer picked him up in Idaho. Stephen was hitchhiking on his way to meet his friends at the rock concert. Jeffrey Dahmer took Stephen back to his dad's house and offered him beer. Now, the Netflix show depicts the paid lifting, the lifting weights and drinking beers. But when time gets closer to Steve having to meet his friends, Jeffrey doesn't want him to leave. When Stephen tried to leave, Jeffrey bludgeoned him with a dumbbell. He then strangles him and dismembers his body and scatters his remains in the woodlands behind his family home. Stephen Tomini, I think I said his name wrong. Jeffrey Dahmer didn't kill anyone between the years 1978 and 1987. His second victim was Stephen Tomei, who was thought to be 24 or 25 years old. Jeffrey and Stephen met at a bar in September 1987. When questioned by the police, Jeffrey confessed to taking Stephen back to a hotel in Milwaukee to drug and rape him. However, he claimed he couldn't remember what happened next. Jeffrey Dahmer said he woke up to find Stephen dead in his bed, and he apparently had no intentions of hurting him. Dahmer reportedly transported Stephen's body to his grandmother's in a suitcase, where he dismembered and pulverized the bones. Well, I think he cooked it. James Doxtoro, very young boy. I think this is the 14-year-old. Can't even get smaller. James Doxtoro was 14 years old when he met Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey lured James into the basement in his grandmother's house and promised him money for nude photos. He then drugged and raped and strangled and dismembered James's body. Richard Geraro, I think I said his name wrong, was offered money by Jeffrey Dahmer if he returned with him to his grandmother's home. Jeffrey then drugged and strangled Richard, committing necrophilia, and dismembered Richard's body after. Anthony Sears. Anthony was 24-year-old model who met Jeffrey at bar, and Jeffrey Dahmer drugged and strangled Anthony. However, he was reportedly kept trophies of his murder. Raymond Smith. Raymond Smith was Jeffrey Dahmer's first murder after leaving prison for his second-degree sexual assault charge. Jeffrey moved out of his grandma's and into a new apartment. Shortly after he met a 32-year-old sex worker called Raymond Smith. Jeffrey drugged Raymond, strangled him, and took photos of his corpse. He also dismembered um, Raymond's body and preserved his skull, which he kept close to Anthony Ser's remain. The photo remain was eventually found in 1991. Edward Smith. Edward Smith was Jeffrey Dahmer's seventh victim. The 27-year-old and Jeffrey Dahmer had reportedly been seen together at a club before. Ernest Miller. Ernest Miller was a busboy when he went to visit family in Milwaukee on Labor Day weekend in 1990. Dahmer met him and offered him money and returned to his apartment. An article from the Washington Post dating back to 1991 says Dahmer drugged Ernest and then cut his throat and killed him. David Thomas. David Thomas was a young man who went missing in 1990. Serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was convicted of his murder and photos of his dismembered body was discovered. Although his body was never actually found, David is one of his 4 victims, along with Steve and Richard and Eddie Smith, whose bodies have not been recovered, so they're out there scattered somewhere. Curtis Slater. Curtis was the 10th victim of Jeffrey Dahmer. Curtis was approached by Dahmer as he waited at a bus stop near Marquette University. Dahmer got Curtis back to his apartment by enticing him with an offer of money in exchange for posing for photographs. When Curtis went back with Dahmer, he was drugged and strangled and dismembered. Errol Lindsay. 19-year-old Errol Lindsay met Jeffrey Dahmer on the street when he was encouraged to go back to Dahmer's apartment. When Errol went back, he was drugged. However, what makes his case different is that he was the first person Dahmer admitted to conducted experiments on. Dahmer drilled a hole in Lindsay's skull and poured acid into it in an attempt to induce zombie-like state. Errol Lindsay woke up, but Dahmer drugged him again and strangled him, later dismembered and disposing of his body. Tony Hughes. Now, Tony Hughes, I know, is the deaf guy. Tony Hughes and Jeffrey Dahmer met at a gay bar, and Tony was an aspiring model, and he was also deaf. The pair communicated through written notes. Dahmer strangled Tony Hughes and left his body on the floor for 3 days before dismembering him and taking images of the process. Canuck. I can't say his other name. Smithphone. I can't say his other name. Canuck was 14 years old when Jeffrey Dahmer lured him back to his apartment while Tony Hughes' body was still on the floor. Dahmer drilled a hole into Canuck's skull, but he then woke up and escaped and was crying out for help. Now, in this, the lady in the apartment tried to help him. Oh, hello, sorry, I was so busy reading. I know. I know, I'm going to do it. I was better before, just a while ago. Canuck was the one who tried to escape. So they were saying in the depiction of the Netflix one, it wasn't accurate. They said that how he literally came out and a lady tried to save him, and by the time she called or she went to the apartment, Canuck had gone and Jeffrey had gone because he was using the parole that, oh yeah, I'm gay, whatever, because he knows that how that would have what you call it, made the police not want to take him in and stuff. Matt Turner. So Jeffrey Dahmer traveled to Chicago Pride Parade in summer of 1991, where he met Matt Turner, who was 20 years old. Once they were at the bus station, Dahmer offered Matt Turner money to go with him to Milwaukee and pose for, well, they keep putting pose for nude photographs. The Post reported once they were at Dahmer's apartment, Turner was drugged and Dahmer then strangled and dismembered him. Jeremiah Wilderberg. Just days after killing Matt Turner, Dahmer traveled to Chicago again and met Jeremiah at a gay bar. So that's his hunting, that was his hunting space. That's where he used to hunt for men. At a gay bar, 23-year-old Jeremiah Wilderberg was offered money by Dahmer in return for going home with him to Milwaukee to exchange nude photographs. He reportedly stayed with Dahmer for 2 whole days. On the first day, engaging, the oral sex, whatever. According to the reports, then the next day, when Jeremiah wanted to leave, Dahmer strangled him and dismembered him. Oliver Lace. Should I just say their names? This is saying how they died. Right, so then on, I'm just going to say their names. Oliver Lace, Joseph Blade Hot. So Oliver was 24 and Joseph was 25. I'm going to go back to the photograph so we can see them all. So it's really sad. I mean, they were all aspiring to become something, especially Tony Hughes, who's the deaf one. His mum really, he came from a love family. So it's not like he came from a, what you call it, not love family. In the depiction, what they did where the sister really was upset where she said what she said, that actually happened in the court. So Netflix is really making money off of these young men. I mean, there's people will. I mean, like we have issues with, the sexual orientations, whatever. But when you really think about it, right, they're all innocent men. They always lured to their death by one way or the other through money or promises or whatever. He really was a very deadly man. These men, family, really deserve money from the books, documentaries, whatever is made. And I personally feel that you know, an carbonation guy X1 made a point. He said that what you call it? He said, yes, it's the money. And we all know it's all about money where this is concerned. It's all about money. It's all about money. Nothing else. So, as you hear, my voice is in and out, crackling. But I thought, let me come up and do this one because I always have lives sitting around and I never get to do them. So, I'm doing this because even if it was victims like the new Crossfire victims, even I would do the same for them because it is not because it took them so long to get this guy, so long, right? So long till even his dad wanted him to say he was insane and all sorts of things. But because he knew what he did was bad, obviously the person who took him out, right? Oh yeah, and plus he was very cocky about it on top of it. So I feel, I feel, I know there probably is a lot of videos who's highlighted the victims already, but I'm just gonna put out their faces. I did say how they died because they died really horribly, really horribly. Um, and is, I mean, yeah, there's nothing else I can say. I thought I just put out the victims, really say their names. even though I don't say their names accurately, but it's the fault. It's the fault that counts as well, because um I don't know what they're trying to incite something, because every time when they put on certain things on Scream, there's always a copycat. I mean, I've highlighted this on Dark Side. There's always someone who's ready to copy the MO, the same thing. Someone could be watching the Netflix thing, get ideas, they go out, they do the same thing. You never know. So, I mean, yeah. Anyways, thank you for passing through. Anyway, Amma and Clear. Yeah, I am gonna go and take care of my. I'm gonna take care of myself. When I'm a little bit better, I'm gonna come on, because I'm just in and out, in and out. Yeah, as you can hear. So with that said, I'll see you later. Take care. Bye.